developing a product, there are a lot of trials and errors that you go through. That's why they call it R&D, research and development. Hey guys, Erin here at the Artist Appeals. You're inside the studio, and I thought I'd give you a backstory today. So I just got some new mini brads for my company, EyeConnect Crafts. And I've never really talked about the backstory of why I started the Artist Appeals and wrote the book, The Artist Appeals, and went through all this effort of interviewing, like, I don't know how many people I've interviewed now, 60, 70, 80, about the business of art. And why did I start asking this question to even begin with? How do you make money as an artist? Well, I'll tell you today. Here's the backstory. So when I left teaching as a college professor full-time, I was a college professor of digital art. First, it was called multimedia and internet production. Then it was called digital art. Anyways, I left there, right, to have kids. And I went to the craft stores, and I had two little boys. And after my first son, went to the craft store, and I couldn't find what I was looking for. Because frankly, I was a tomboy. Growing up, I love to ski. I'm a downhill skier. I love to hike. I hike literally at least once, if not 2-3 times a week, as the whole year round. I hike in the summer. I hike in the winter. I hike in the fall. So yeah, I'm big into the outdoors. I love nature. I love animals. And I couldn't find what I wanted in the craft store. I could not find crafts that were not A, made of styrofoam or plastic, and B, weren't like all rainbow colored and made for, well, frankly, little girls. There's not a lot of crafts out there on the market for little boys or for town girls like me, right? And so I decided to make my own. So I went down this path of designing these characters. So I started out with these designs that I had come up with that were essentially the opposite of Picasso's Cubism, right? So Cubism is where you take a figure and you shatter it into cubes. It's a very rough, primitive look, right? You take a face or a figure and you shatter it into rectangles and squares and triangles. So these characters were instead all made of spheres and of crescents and of half of a circle, a yin-yang, right? And they were all jointed, so they moved. So I came up with the idea of essentially creating little animals that were like paper dolls. They were like paper dolls, except they weren't paper dolls because they were animals. And this was the result. The totem poppets. Now, a friend of mine, Christine, helped me name these. Thank you, Chris. She's awesome. The word totem means like a spirit animal, essentially. And poppet is apparently a term of affection in the European countries. And what do? Well, you pop these bad boys out of their backer board, and then you pop them together using mini brads. Now, when I first started inventing these, I had to figure out how to put them together. So I came up with brass eyelets. This was the first of the challenges I had to overcome because brass eyelets come in lots of different shaft lengths. Let me see if I can show you this. So, I'm going to tripped over a box. I don't know if you can see this. Let me get up close here. Can you see how tiny this is? I can barely hold it. It's so tiny. I can barely hold it. It's so tiny. That is a 1/16 inch brass eyelet. Okay. So let's not trip again. So these were 1/16 inch brass eyelets. Now that is the circumference or the size across the brass eyelet, the hole, right? Not circumference, I guess it would be diameter. It's the diameter across the hole. But these brass eyelets, they're lovely and they're fun. They're great texturally, but we had to figure out what shaft length they could be because if they were too long, then the pieces would just flop and they wouldn't hold together. And if they were too short, then it couldn't grab on and make a connection between two pieces of chipboard. So we had to find just the right shaft length. Then we had to test the tools. So I tested 4 or 5 different brass eyelet setters. That's a whole nother story because I found the perfect brass eyelet setter from Fiskars. I carried them for a long time. They're spring loaded. I just adore them. But it turns out that they're rather difficult for kids to use, as well as for some adults. They take a bit of strength. So these are the Fiskars eyelet setter tools. So when I invented EyeConnect Crafts, there was a lot of things I had to learn. When you're designing a product or developing a product, there are a lot of trials and errors that you go through. That's why they call it R&D, research and development, right? So we tried out brass eyelets. We had to figure out setters. I had to take it out to market and talk to people to learn that this didn't work. This didn't work for everybody. So after a while, we pivoted and found these mini brads. So here I am today, packaging some mini brads with you here. These are some new red ones, assorted reds that I'm going to be adding to the website. Here are some assorted pinks that I wanted to add to the website and assorted yellows. We were out of black. We had to reorder black. I have a back order for the black, and we needed to reorder silver and gold. I was out of them. So ordered all of them. And part of the fun of the peels method and how this relates is that starting all of this, doing all of this research, learning all of these things like, brass eyelets, mini brads, weigh counting, and packaging, hazard warnings, all this and more. I was like, I better write this down. I better record this. So I cover all this and more in the book, The Artist Appeals, right? Started writing it all down, all this stuff that I was learning. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe nobody taught me all this stuff about laser cutting and packaging. So designed the products. This is how this relates to the Artist Appeals. So couldn't find a product I wanted, had the designs, decided to make my own, right? Found a laser cutter, learned that you have to prototype it first, figured out how to join them, tested joining methods, tested setting methods. Once you get to that part, past the prototype, then you got to figure out packaging, right? So I learned that you've not only got to get the product made, but you also have to get the packaging made and designed. So wrote the write-ups about the symbolism of the animals in mythology or different symbolism. So each one of these comes with a little write-up, kind of like a fortune cookie about the animal with a little art prompt at the end. But when you're designing a product and packaging it, you have to pay for the plastic sleeve. You pay for the insert card. You pay for what is called the hang tag. You pay for the hole punched in the hang tag. This is designed as one piece. It's folded over. And so when you design it, the lettering is going to be upside down, right? So you're going to design it as a thing that folds in half, and then it goes over the plastic, and then they use a machine, they insert it and staple it, okay? You pay for the labor of doing that. And all of this goes into the pricing of your product. I learned about setting wholesale pricing and setting retail pricing and about the term keystone pricing. All of this I talk about in the book, The Artist Appeals, and a lot more. But this is the backstory. So I couldn't find the products I wanted. I decided to make them. Huge learning curve, right? Oh my gosh, the mistakes I made. And I made some mistakes, let me tell you. I also include the mistakes in the book. One of these is hazard warnings. You've got to have a hazard warning on the back of anything that has small pieces that kids could choke on. It needs to read, warning, choking hazard, small parts, not for children under 3. Partnered with a larger company. After I created these, right? So art, you create the art. P, product. You take the art and turn it into some sort of product that you can sell. Now, this can be as basic as making a print, right? Or selling the original. That's the first step. But if you want to take it a step further, then you can look at things like print on demand, which is where a company will print your designs, your artwork onto products for you, and then they will ship it. When somebody orders one, they will print the one and ship it out, and you get a percentage of that. It's a great next step in art, product, and then presentation. But there is another level to that. The third level is licensing your art and design to a bigger company to hopefully produce, distribute, and market. That's the idea. You partner with a larger company and they take your products and they sell them to a big box store, because there's a lot of requirements to get into a big box store, or to their chain of stores or whatever. They produce the product and then they market it and sell it. Now, here's the story though. It doesn't always turn out like you expected. I learned the hard way about hazard warnings. Now, thank God nobody choked on anything. It was just one of those like embarrassing moments where somebody said, "Hey, do you have hazard warnings on the back of your mini brads?" And I went, what's that? Whoops, let me get some of those. So, I really quickly got some, and not a big deal. Same type of thing with UPC codes. You design the packaging. If you don't know about UPC codes, you might not know to incorporate them into the packaging, and then you've got to add them manually after the fact with stickers. That's a pain in the butt. Or here's another learning lesson. UPC codes must be bought from GS1, because there are a lot of third parties that sell UPC codes, but sometimes they sell used ones and things get all confused. And then you find out that somebody on Amazon is selling men's black socks using your UPC codes. What the heck? And there's a conflict. There's a lot to be learned in producing a product. And so that's why I started the Artist Appeals, is I wanted to share the whole story and the whole journey. Now, normally I don't talk so much about it because most of the Artist Appeals has been about interviewing other artists. You see, what happened is I started recording the things I learned. Started dictating them, recording them, and then I got pregnant with my second kid. And I realized I couldn't do it all on my own, and I wouldn't be able to go to the conferences. In fact, one of the big conferences out there for art licensing, which, by the way, what type of people are in art licensing? It's probably like 80% women. Well, guess what? They don't allow children on the floor, and they don't allow nursing. They don't have a place to nurse. I had asked them, I wrote them and said, may I come to the conference with my newborn, who's going to be only 2 or 3 months? May I come with my husband, my toddler, and my newborn? He'll take care of my kid and my newborn, and then bring them to me when they need attention and nursing and so forth and so on. And then they'll go to Disney during the rest of the day. And they said, no, you can't do that. Hello, it's 2020. Seriously, you don't accommodate nursing mothers. Anyways, so I decided I was going to need some help. I was going to need a bigger company because I wanted to be able to spend time with my children and nurse them and do things like that. So, anyways, I partnered with a larger company. I had this wonderful attorney that connected me to a larger company, helped me with the contract. Thank you so much, Tammy. You rule. A good lawyer is really, really, really important. We negotiated what was called a letter of intent. Ever heard of an LOI? Letter of intent. It's basically like a contract to have a contract. You're basically saying, hey, I think I want to have a contract with you, but I don't want it to actually be formal or binding. So let's do a letter of intent instead, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So for a full year, I was under letter of intent. Then, after that year was up, we did negotiate a full contract for another 2 years. So that means we were together for 3 years. During that time, I sent them research. I sent them curriculum. I wrote them curriculum that matched the California State Educational Standard Common Core for, grades 3 and 6 Earth Sciences. We did a lot of work together. We sourced those products in China. We changed the paper type so it would be white. We developed a new logo and a new look. We even developed a POG, or POG, which is a point of display. Don't ask me why it's POG and not POD. I don't know. So anyways, went through all that. And then at the very end, nothing. That's right, nothing. They basically said, yeah, we changed our minds. They hamstrung me for 3 years. I was under, a contract, and so I couldn't take them out and license them to another company. On top of that, there was something in our contract called a minimum royalties guarantee. It's something that says, hey, if we sell nothing whatsoever, we still agree to pay you X amount for the time and the effort that you've put in. All the curriculum you've written, the 3 years that you've, been working with us and responding to emails and giving us whatever we need to, have these products developed, sourced, prototyped, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they said no. They said, we don't want to pay you, and we're not going to, and we're much bigger than you, so we don't have to. Nanny, nanny, boo-boo. Talked to my lawyer. She said, Erin, it's not worth it. You'll spend more money on legal fees than you'll get back from the minimum royalties guarantee. Ain't that a bitch, right? It's the little guy. It's us artists, it's us designers that sometimes get the short end of the stick. Anyways, I moved on. Well, no, still a little, still rankles a little bit. That's why I don't talk about it all that much. In the end, I decided that the book was really, really something that people needed to know. That all this material, all these terminologies, the contracts that I'd learned, and all the terms in them, like minimum royalties guarantee, like load-in, like POG, like USB codes and hazard warnings, that all of these things really needed to be out there in one place for you guys to find and research. Uh-oh, I dropped some. There needed to be a book that covered licensing. So, couldn't find one, so I made one. There it is, sitting on the shelf. The Artist Appeals. Once I had all that done, I thought, you know what? I don't want it to be all about me. And if you recall, I was a professor, so can't do anything without research. It's got to be valid, right? Validation. So I started asking everybody I could find, I went to conferences. I asked for introductions. I met some of the most amazing artists. And I asked them, what's your story? How do you make money as an artist? Have you ever licensed your work? What's the weirdest or funniest story that has ever happened to you? And that's how the Artist Appeal started, is that I had an experience building EyeConnect Crafts and these types of products. Here's the penguin. I'll show you some of these as I do this. So I designed probably 7 different designs: penguins, ducks, peacocks, celebration bulbs for lacing up for dexterity, stars, right? Owls, all this and more I share with you in the Artist Appeals book as well as the online course, because it's been an adventure, folks. It really has. This is the hot air balloon. Here's more birds, swans, and of course, one of my favorites, the dragon. These holidays are coming up in the next month or so. There's days that relate to these designs, so I'll be doing those as part of EyeConnect Crafts craft how-to blog posts. But this has been the backstory of how I started the Artist Appeals, how I started EyeConnect Crafts, how that experience led to the podcast, The Artist Appeals, and then, of course, to the book, The Artist Appeals. I hope you've enjoyed my little backstory. Thanks for joining me inside of my little studio here as I package up some mini brads. Tell you what, this is one of the most tedious processes, is weigh counting mini brads. It's really tedious. So thanks for joining me and keeping me entertained. Tar. That's another terminology. Tar. You gotta zero out your scale. All the amazing things you learn when you start a business. When you start a business, trust me, you don't know what you don't know until you know you don't know it. Does that make sense? It's one of those things. Sometimes you just got to jump in and start, because the process teaches you how much you don't know. Tip for you: if you're starting a process like this and you're learning a lot, record it. Record it, because you never know, you might just end up with a book. All right, well, thanks for joining me. I got a whole bunch of mini brads now I gotta pick up. Later. Oh, they're everywhere. One time, I spilled a jar twice this size of brass eyelets. Actually, my kid did. 10,000 brass eyelets I spilled. 10,000. Can you imagine? It was one hell of a cleanup. It really, really was. I think that's somewhere on Instagram, pictures of it. All right, well, it's time for me to clean up again. Look, you guys, it's here. Oh my God. You can get a printed version of the Artist Appeals on Amazon now. It looks so good. Oh, I'm so psyched. I like it in the paperback. The Artist Appeals, this is my first copy from Amazon.com. You can get your copy of the Artist Appeals, the 7 steps for how to make money as an artist, which summarizes some of the best stories, tips, tricks, lessons, quotes from the first 2 seasons of the podcast. Here it is, folks. I can't believe it. It's been a lot of work, guys. So there you have it. The printed version's out. Go get yours on Amazon.